Hey everybody, welcome to The Secret History, Living in Your Aquarium with our special guest, Michael from Michael's Fish Room. Michael has been under the weather with the name that cannot be spoken, apparently. Voldemort? Yeah. I think he's got Voldemort disease. No, he's got the Rona, it sounds like, and he's still willing to come and chat and be a guest, so thank you so much, man. And if you're feeling tired or anything, please just say I got to bounce. So
no problem. I mean, I feel pretty good right now. Saturday and Sunday kicked my behind, but
yeah,
I'm good right now. So let's do this.
Right on. Well, how do we sound? Can everybody hear us okay? See us okay? No weird echoes or robot noises or Godzilla noises, anything like that. It's good to see folks in the chat. And today we're going to be kind of just first we're going to get to know Michael a little bit in case you guys don't know who he is or what he's about. He's a fellow YouTuber who's been at it longer than I. He's got a bigger following than I, and he's definitely he's got a lot of tanks, a lot of experience now, and I think he's an entertaining guy to listen to.
Yeah, and sexy. So
sexy, yeah, that helps too. Yeah, I mean, I thought that went without speaking. They saw our physique in the thumbnail. So, yeah, we both have that physique, I swear. But yeah, so tell me about yourself. When did you start keeping fish, man?
I mean, I've been keeping fish since I was a little kid. I had the standard 10-gallon with 10 neon tetras and whatever other fish I had with clown puke gravel, and every month my dad and I would clean the tank out with soap and water and put the fish out and they'd all die.
My mom and I too.
Buy more fish. Yeah, I mean, I remember putting carbon in a box filter and then the stuffing on top. And, I remember that from when I was a kid. So,
yeah.
I guess over the last 10 or 12 years, I've been keeping fish seriously. And I started watching YouTube and I found Corey from Aquarium Co-op. And I'm like, if that dude can build tanks and breed for profit, I can do it. Now, clearly there's a big difference, but that's how I started. I started to try to maintain my hobby, and here I am.
So it's to maintain your habit now, yeah.
Yes.
Or it was, and now it's taken on a life of its own, basically.
Correct. Now it's a business.
So in any case, let's see what else was I gonna say. So when did you get on YouTube? What started that?
I think I had the same basic feeling, like I could turn my phone on and just talk about stuff. And I mean, my early videos are really cringy and bad, and the phone's the wrong way, and the light sucks, and they're like 1 minute and 96 seconds. Like, they're just terrible.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, I want to get to the point where I can at least make money making videos. So then I did a little research and got a little better. I mean, I still suck, but it is what it is.
No, I mean, clearly you're doing something right. You got a lot of fish living with you, so that's good. And a lot of people keep fish different ways. I mean, there's everything from CO2 super high tech down to filterless Wallstad, and then there's no gravel, glass bottom spawn tanks, and none of it is right or wrong. I mean, it's all just a different way of doing it. And if you want to make the most bang for your buck, I would honestly say that probably glass bottom tanks that you can clean out and service easily and catch the fish easily and all that are probably the way to go. People watch my channel, they're probably used to hearing me say, oh, you can set it up and you can spawn this and that and this and that all in the same tank. That doesn't mean it's easy to catch them. It doesn't mean that I'm getting the most fish that I could. It doesn't mean they don't eat each other from time to time. So, yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of things you said, right? So first and foremost, there's always more than one way to do things. And just because it works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
I keep bare bottom tanks with lots of moam because that's the type of tanks I need for the type of fish I'm breeding. Other people say they're dirty. No, it's natural. Like, it's no big deal. But
yeah.
And the other thing is, like, it's a business for me now. I
Sure.
treat it as a business. I have one tank upstairs that's like a planted tank, and it's kind of okay. And I have Paco, but other than that, they're just little dollar signs swimming in tanks, making other little dollar signs. That's it.
I understand. Okay, I understand that, and we have some viewers, I'm sure, that they've named their betta. It has a middle name. It has a birthday that they've probably figured out, and a little hammock made out of a leaf or something. It's got like a condo that's all set up.
Right.
And I can empathize with that. That's not me exactly. I'm somewhere in between that and, I think what we're going to talk about today, basically, which is, I think we need to start off in talking, which is, do fish have feelings or emotions? We'll need to define those terms. But then I think the other thing is, the bigger question in the end might be, does it really matter in the big scheme of things? Because if the answer is they have emotions, but they're nowhere near as complex as humans, and I'm never going to value a fish's comfort over a human's, then does it really change anything we do, at the end of the day? And so I think that's kind of an important part of this too, is just, the implication, unless we think that they all have souls that are of equal value to human souls, like we really, in my mind, don't really need to change a whole lot of what we're doing, regardless of the answer. But
I mean, that's pretty deep. So
it is, yeah.
The original question, do fish have feelings? Well, I don't know about feelings, but certain fish definitely, like, I think Taco is a way smarter fish than a guppy.
Yeah.
Not just because he has a big, can I say it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He has a big cock. And
yeah.
so yeah, I think he's smarter, but he doesn't have, especially guppies, most fish, and I'm speaking about the fish I keep, which are primarily guppies and plecos. And I have some Fluvals upstairs, and I obviously have some flower horns.
Sure.
But for the most part, that's what I keep. I don't keep cichlids. I don't keep any, fancy things. Just guppies and plecos.
Sure.
And do they have feelings? No, I don't think they do. I think they are driven by three things.
Okay.
Eating, pooping,
yeah,
and making more. That's it. And people are like, oh, but they get scared. Yeah, that's not an emotion. That's a response. That's just them being natural. So
I guess this is kind of another thing. Like if we like break that down, because I agree, like in that sense. But like to me, like when a car comes out at you and you're driving and you're like, oh my God, and your heart starts racing and you're sweating and you're like, whoa, that was a close one. Or if you get in a car wreck, to me, that's an autonomic, or like, and it's like you can't help it. Like you didn't decide like, am I going to go in my car? Am I nervous about it? And to me, that's not an emotion. That's a response, like you're saying. But if you're afraid to go in a car forever afterwards, to me, that would be like an emotion. That's like, in my mind, that's kind of the difference. Is like it's projecting into the future events from the past and changing your action based on that, to me, is kind of an indication of emotion for the most part, like in my mind. But I'd just be curious if you kind of think that's a reasonable kind of guess or like, framework.
For those of you that know me, that don't know me, I'm really just a dumb guy with a camera that likes to sell fish. So this is coming from only my own experiences with my 60 fish tanks in my fish room, right? So
sure, no, yeah, and it doesn't need to be any more than that,
I think if I went into a tank and tried to grab the same guppy with a net for a year straight, every single time I would be able to catch him, because he's not smart enough to know that net is going to get him.
Okay, yeah. And I wonder too, like if the fact that we have domesticated, for instance, guppies, we haven't cared if they are good at avoiding nets or whatnot. And that's what you keep, right? I mean, same with dogs or cats, you could probably argue too. Like for a long time, we cared whether they protected the campsite or whatever. We didn't care if they were smart enough to herd sheep, probably originally, and in my mind, dogs that are like herding dogs and working dogs are way smarter than like super old breeds of dogs generally, like an Afghan or, you know, I don't know. I won't go there because people have too many feelings about dogs. But basically, you know, I guess I'm curious because I've heard for a long time, you know, that fish don't have feelings. And I remember like the consensus used to be, even in science, like probably they don't even feel pain. And I was wondering, what do you think about that? I mean, do you have a personal opinion about like whether they feel pain or anything?
I mean, I don't know that their nervous system is complex enough to feel pain like we feel pain.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like, you know, some people like pain. Like I like
yeah.
tattoos because
yeah, me too. Yeah.
It kind of hurts, but I kind of like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think their nervous system is that complex. I think, again, dumb guy with a camera, if it hurts, they go away because they don't want it to hurt, but they don't realize what it is. Whereas a human, and I think even dogs, if you're going to go like that.
Sure.
If they get burned, they know not to go into the fire again, right?
Okay, yeah.
I don't think a fish is that smart, which is why guppies will jump out of their tank and onto the floor.
Yeah, well, you know, that's interesting because just like, and I don't mean to be like reaching into sources that you don't have access to or whatever, but you know, I've read things about how fish can supposedly see 30 feet outside their tank, and puffers can see and identify their owners, and this and that. Goldfish, the other day, they had one that could steer a little robot. Did you see that video? Is like a goofy video that's been on. It's been making the rounds, viral video. But basically, they put a goldfish tank on an RC race car, and they gave it had like a little mechanism that would release a treat whenever it steered it to a certain part of the room that had a color painted on the wall. And to me, that doesn't indicate emotions or anything really. It just shows that they want food, so they go there and they learn. Just like if they were on a reef or in a lake, that's the part of the lake or the reef that has it. But the cool part was that they set it up so that it looked like it was driving this little car, and that it would go around obstacles straight, you know, to get to the food. But right. As you say, you know, that's a point I didn't really think about, is if they can project outside the tank, why do they jump out of the tank so frequently? That is a good, that is a good point.
I mean, they're only this big. How big can their brain actually be, right?
Yeah, no, it's true.
So, you know, do they have feelings? Do they have emotions? I don't think so. I think human fish keepers project their feelings and emotions onto fish.
Yeah.
I mean, I see every day in the Facebook groups, oh, my guppies are sad or my fish are depressed. No, they're not. They don't get depressed. You're depressed. It's depressing watching you watch your fish. Like, that's just stupid.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Like, so I'm an anthropology major, like, by schooling, and anthropomorphism being like that word for that of, you know, we project our feelings onto even like cars and stuff, like, you know, or the weather, like, oh man, it's gloomy today. Like, no, it's just more wet and cloudy, you know, than another day. And so, yeah, that's definitely something that we have to keep into account. I guess what I would argue is that I think like cichlids and certain fish, it's probably like a, you know, like why am I not on screen? It's probably like a continuum, you know, but what I was kind of thinking is like, for me, if a fish is intelligent, if we can demonstrate that a fish is intelligent, then I think it's more likely that it has a more complex understanding of the world and of like what we could call emotions. So like they know that, you know, fish can recognize the face of their feeder, but not guppies. Not right. No, correct.
And so,
correct.
Again, I'm only talking about what I know, which are guppies. So
sure, and I don't think a pleco either, honestly. You know,
no, but
you know, there's a really interesting talk by a guy who's kind of an asshole, but he's interesting, and his name is Richard Dawkins. He's an evolutionary biologist, and he's the guy who invented the word meme, like MEME. like we think of internet memes, but all it used to mean in the 70s when he invented that word as like an anthropologist, biologist, philosopher, whatever you want to call him, he meant it was like an idea that's transmissible and then gains popularity. And just like evolution, if it's not a good idea, people stop talking about it and it goes away. If it's a good idea, or if it's a really, really bad idea, maybe it's so bad that people want to share, that's a bad idea, let's not do that. So it continues. But if it's in that zone of not so interesting, whatever, then it goes away. So I think he's an intelligent guy. But one thing that he used to say was he's got a talk called "The Universe is Queerer Than We Can Suppose," and queer as in strange, obviously. There's no LGBT whatever involved with that talk. But the talk basically says, we're humans, and so for us, a long time, maybe an hour or a few days or something, because we only live 100 years or 50 years or whatever. But to a redwood tree, if it was smart, a long time would probably be completely different. And to a fruit fly, if it were intelligent as us, because of its lifespan, its concept of time would probably be a few seconds felt like a long time because it only lives a few days.
Right.
And so I think in that same way, though, that maybe, Pleco, for instance, their face is like this on wood all the time or in muck. So their whole being of understanding in the world centers around, like, what would your life be like if you were supposed to do the best at surviving, being this close to a piece of wood all day? I mean, that's why you get eyes that are on top and keep an eye out for something above you rather than below you. Predatory fish have their eyes in the front or on enough so they can see more around and kind of hunt things and follow things. And so I wonder, though, because of that, like how complex does an organism need to be before we call it feelings? And I think, honestly, I mean, this is a loaded YouTube stream in that everyone's going to have to make their own mind up in the end about that. No, I don't have any golden secrets about anything here today or anything. And this isn't any sort of like, hey, I'm going to pile on Michael about this or that. I wanted to bring up the topic because it really does interest me. And I really appreciate actually you bringing this up because I do think there is a difference, and I do keep my guppies very differently than I keep, say, cichlids that mate for life, and that when I take one out, the other one will die sometimes, like of no known cause. To me, I could see that being loneliness. I don't know if that's what it is, but if they are evolved to live with a mate and their whole goal, like you said, is to reproduce, to me it makes sense that they could project, my mate's gone, my reason in life, I'm wasting up space almost, or something like that. But maybe that's projecting too much. I don't know. What do you think?
A male guppy doesn't care. If there's 5 females on a tank, he will hit all 5.
Oh, yeah.
He's done with the 5th, go back to the first one. Because that's all he wants to do is put his little in there, and be done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I'm speaking of guppies. Now, I don't know anything about cichlids that breed for life.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that. So
sure.
Maybe they have different feelings or have a more advanced nervous system.
Sure.
I still don't think they have feelings.
Okay. Yeah. No. And
like I don't think they, when they lose their mate, are they sad? I don't know if it's sad or something that they're used to isn't there anymore, and
it's a stress.
They don't know how to function. I don't
sure.
know.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good point because a lot of that could just be me projecting. We have a monogamous culture for the most part. You have your parents or maybe yourself. I'm married. I think you're married as well, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, to us, it seems sad if a pair, the male and female, living together and having babies, just happens to die easily. There's a lot of loaded emotions in that. I mean, I think the best place for people to do research and decide this matter on themselves would be to try to take away, maybe not look at fish we know, maybe look at something that you're not already bonded to, and thinking, you know, like, because I've kept cichlids and guppies both 22 years or something now, you know, since I was a kid. And I obviously have a loaded bias against them. And so, but I do tend to agree that at a certain point, I think that you have so few complexities in a brain that you just can't call it emotions on a human scale. So I do agree with you on guppies and some fish. I don't know, though, you know, what's interesting, and I wanted to bring up too, was that octopus, they turn colors and they change textures, like the mimicking octopus in Australia. And they looked at their brain and they figured out that there's no way, with, like, even if they figured out, like, if you were to build that in a computer, like an application that could turn all, I think it was like 50 million color cells in their body, to just change that to one of 3 colors in the right ratio, RGB, and then to also have the texture of the surface and holding still or moving, and they can move the patterns over their skin, that they don't have the ability to do that in their actual brain. Like, it's just, as far as we understand brains working now, there's, if it's a binary or even a double that system with 4 characters in the basic coding, there's no way to fit that info in there. And so now they're learning, like, oh, well, their arms and there's what the equivalent of like a spinal cord runs through each of their arms, and each cell has like a processing ability to some degree. So, I mean, that's another thing where you could be tricked and think that's a super smart animal. Well, maybe it's just really good at that one task. And so I think humans are really miraculous in our ability to do all sorts of different malleable and abstract tasks and thinking. You know, take something completely unrelated and apply it to something that we've never done before, and we can figure it out because of our brains. And I think there was another thing, and I think someone sent it to you who kind of started part of this exchange going on. But it was an article that I sent him, and it's the last article I want to bring up, because I don't, like I said, I don't want to just like load up on, oh, this evidence, you know, whatever. Like, that's not what this is about. We'll go back to talking about other stuff too. But, you know, I think like cleaning races, it mentioned in the ocean, which I have no experience with. I don't even know what they look like. They can identify the shark or the fish that they were cleaning the scales on. Out of 150 fish, they can identify the individual shark, which to me, all the sharks look the same, for one. Like, a lemon shark that's 5 feet long is a lemon shark, unless it has some big scar or something on it, for the most part. And the fish they work on are not like some ornately patterned fish. They're like gray sharks, you know. But they're able to remember for up to a year when they cleaned the last shark, and they can keep track of all 150. And when they put them in a tank with the sharks, like 3 or 4, they always clean them in the order of who got cleaned the longest time ago. And I just thought that was like, holy cow, like, I wouldn't expect that a fish could figure that out. Does that mean it has emotions? No. But I'm just throwing that out there, that like they are learning some complexity in specific species, because there's 30,000 plus species and 400 million years of evolution. There's going to be some differences. But I just thought that was fascinating. And I thought, well, if they can remember a year or months of like to go do something, they can probably remember like some guy came at me with a net. I'm going to hide because, you know, it was bad last time, or we got eaten by a shark last time. I'm going to hide from that. But I mean, that's another thing. Do you think instincts, like, do you think like fish are born with like just knowing what danger is? I've always wondered that. Like does a salmon know that like a shark is dangerous, or is it once the shark has already started to come at it and attacking, that just like sudden movement scares a salmon?
I don't think sharks and salmon kind of hang in the same places.
True. Okay. A seal.
Now, so look, again, dumb guy, camera, very handsome, a little bit of a sense of humor. I don't know. I don't know about octopus and salmon and sharks. And I made a comment on social media that fish guppies don't have emotions. And then I did a rant about it because it's driving me insane. If I didn't have a business and I have to promote my business on social media, I would not be on Facebook, because the Facebook groups, most of the guppy Facebook groups, it's the same 3 questions. Is my guppy pregnant? When will my guppy give birth? And what kind of guppy is this?
Yeah.
Every day, the same questions. I've made so many videos based on those questions. All I do is put the link in. Because the information is there. If you type your question into Facebook, if you type that into Google, you'd get the answer. And maybe it wouldn't be the right answer, but the argument wouldn't happen because the same questions aren't being asked every time.
Right.
And it's always the same groups. It's always the same groups. Anyway, so I did this rant, and basically my statement was guppies do not have emotions. People project their emotions onto their fish. Betta lovers are the same way. God forbid you put a betta in a small jar. Oh my God. They will lose their mind. They will lose their shit so hard that they're going to have to change their pants. Now,
yeah. I mean, I have 8 bettas in a 2.5 gallon right now, so I'm a monster. Yeah.
No! Oh my God.
And they're males and females, believe it or not.
No, that can't be. Males can't be with other males. It's against the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is what I mean. It's people that read something on social media and have never, ever done it themselves. They've never tried it. They've never investigated anything. They just read, can't keep male bettas together. Somebody, I have 2 male bettas in a 10-gallon. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, no, you can't do that. And they're angry typing. It's insane. And it happens all the time. And I'm one of those guys that doesn't really have a filter. I don't know if you noticed that. And it's hard for me to bite my tongue.
Maybe you should get an under gravel filter, man.
Bite my tongue. And so I'll just comment like, that's stupid. And then that's how the arguments start. But
I understand. Yeah, no, I understand. But I mean, I wanted to just kind of like, I don't know, make something productive of it, and also just reach out to you, because at first, my inclination was to be like, I'm going to go research and I'm going to show that I think some fish have feelings. But clearly now you've explained it. That was not your statement. It was not that all fish have feelings. It was not that this or that. And to me, I agree. Now, the other thing that I think comes in here is, so some people might say, if you don't think fish have feelings, what's to stop you from warehousing them in the most effective way possible and making them miserable? Do you think fish can be miserable, or do you think,
So again,
yeah,
fish.
I'm talking about guppies right now. Like,
no,
yeah.
Yes, I think guppies can be miserable if they're not kept in clean water. They're going to be miserable.
Sure. Yeah.
But is it miserable where, if you, kick the chair in the middle of the night and your toe is hanging off and you're like, oh, I'm miserable? No, it's probably not.
Yeah.
It's just their little brains going, something's not right here, and they die.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's not an emotional miserable. It's probably a more physical miserable. Now, I saw someone in the comments say, I 100% disagree, but I got to see what he said. Oh, sorry, not sorry. I 100% disagree with Michael's statement. You may have your opinion, but don't imply that you are 100% right, because you're not the all-knowing. Master Aquatics, just call me Eduardo. I never said I was right. I said I'm a dumb guy with a camera, and this is what I believe, and this is what happens in my fish room. You can disagree with me. I don't care. It doesn't bother me.
Well, and so that was the other thing here, is I want to show that as a community, we can have different opinions. We can come at things and say we have a difference of opinions, but I think we can all agree, keep the water clean, don't let them get diseased or super inbred. I think our basic care is going to stay very similar. Some people are very obsessed, and I'm one of them, with replicating like the tannins in the water and the pH and all that. Like, I think it's fun. It's fun for me, but that's because of me, and I like to see if I can bring a slice of nature exactly into my home. And that's on me. That's not on my fish necessarily. I understand that a ram, a German blue ram, is going to be able to spawn in neutral water or even slightly, alkaline water, even though in the wild they're very delicate and, whatever. If they're born in a farm and, fish farm in Florida, they're going to have completely different water parameters. So I also think that care can be subjective in that way too. You need to research where your fish come from. And on that note too, I wanted to say, this is where your fish come from if you buy from Michael's Fish. So I put his link in the description. If you guys want to check out his guppies and his website and his channel, it's all linked below. But I mean, this, here it is. I just wanted to introduce someone in the fish community who clearly has people listening to him too. And, I want to, extend a friendly hand and say that we don't need to fight over stuff. We don't need to have silly drama. We can get together and have a civil live stream and talk about whatever. And so, that's kind of what I hope this would be. And so far, so good, I hope.
That's a good point. So as a fish community, we can have different methods of doing things, like I said. And again, if it works for me, it might not work for you. Now, you like to replicate the fish's environment, the tannins, the water parameters, everything. And that's cool. And in my angelfish tank upstairs, I like to do the same. Like, I have all South American type fish in there, right?
Sure.
I once put a goldfish with Angel just to prove it could be done because someone on Facebook said you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Is it the best thing? No. Do I recommend it? Not really, but it can be done, right?
I have a tank right now that has pea puffers, Turkana jewel cichlids. It's a 10-gallon tank. It has a pair of Turkana jewel cichlids, which are the meanest fish I've ever owned, and pea puffers, and then Praecox neon dwarf rainbow fish. No one has any fins missing or any problems. It's partially a miracle, but it's also just watching the fish and trying it. I mean, I'd always been told you couldn't do it.
Right, but that's the thing. People say, "Oh, you can't do that," but have never actually tried it. So,
right.
Again, on my channel, when I talk about something, it's because I've done it. It's not because I've read it.
Sure.
Or I've watched someone else's video, or I read someone else's article. That's not how I roll. That, to me, that's just fake. If you're going to present on YouTube like I do and you do, you have to kind of know what you're talking about. Now, I know what I'm talking about from my own experience. Mm-hmm. It might not be right for you or for someone else or that other guy, Eduardo, but hey, it is what it is.
Sure. And I think you bring up an interesting point that is a side of my channel that sometimes people don't get, which is I do a lot of research. I look at a lot of sources. I wasn't there. I don't know what the flaws in the studies are or the biases of the scientists. And you better believe there are biases and flaws and agendas. I mean, who gave them the money to do the study? There's a million things. I mean, we've talked about it on my channel, but I do regurgitate a lot of other info in that I find it interesting. It's like my hobby to read what's new in the world of fish research. But I agree that the bottom line is nothing beats experience. And if you have people telling you, I did it this way and it worked, here's the proof on my video camera, or on my film, then you can't argue too much with that. I mean, and I think you can argue again with feelings, but the bottom line is if you're worried about the feelings of your fish, after we have the basic care taken care of, like we both agreed, you don't want them sitting in ammonia, you don't want them beating each other up so bad that they're in physical. I mean, I'm assuming you believe that they have enough physical pain response that they want to get out of the situation. It's causes stress. They don't have as good of a life or whatever you want to call it.
So, I mean, I never said anything about pain or not pain. I don't really know. I would assume they have some sort of receptors that tells them that's bad.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah.
But again, as we were talking before, as humans, we kind of can regulate pain because some people like it, some people don't.
Right.
Some people can handle more pain than others.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I don't think fish are that. I don't think guppies are that. Their brains are that advanced. Now, Taco might be. I don't know. I think if I put my finger in there, he would bite it. I know that this a-hole over here would. Can you see?
Yeah.
If I put my finger in, he will try to eat me.
What's his name?
This is Hank.
Hank. Okay.
Taco.
I knew Taco.
Yeah. And I had, before Taco, I had Chewy. And someone commented that Chewy loved me. I think he loved getting fed by me. I think if my son came down and gave him a snail every day, he would learn to love my son.
Sure.
He feeds him, right?
Yeah, sure.
I don't think it's the same emotional love that we feel. Like when my wife
Oh,
work,
I totally agree. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when a fish gets a guppy or a flower horse or gets food, do they get happy? It's not the same, I don't think.
Yeah. So to me, I agree that it's not the same. But what I think is that if they have dopamine receptors in their brain, which they do, that's what we have to feel good. I mean, we're just animals, but we can we can complexly, disassemble thoughts and twist them into circles and make up all sorts of crazy cause and effect of why we're feeling away or not even know why we're feeling away. I think humans have such complex thought and emotion that it clouds our ability to even know what we're feeling a lot of times or what caused it. Whereas, like I said, I think an instinct is when something happens, you have a response that you can't control. Like it's cold, you get goosebumps. But what I don't quite understand and what I'm curious about in life, and this is, I'm not like, Michael, give me an answer now. That's what you're here for. It's just a theoretical out there in the ether question, which is, what is the difference between instinct and emotion? I get the difference between like a response that's kind of premeditated or it's evolved as like, this happens, do this because the fish that did that didn't die. So they passed on that thing, like the fish who swim fast when they get chased by a shark. It's not that they have to think when there's a shark, I need to swim fast. It's that their nervous system maybe just said, run when this big thing comes at you. And the ones who didn't run got eaten. And so there's no more of those fish after millions of years or whatever. And so now they all do that. And it's easy to say that it's because they thought about it and wanted to run. And I think that there are very, like, you put your net in the tank. I think that I've seen it, though, where some fish will remember that I'm just catching, like, the guppies. Like my cories, when I'm going after guppy, after a few guppies get caught, the cories kind of just chill out. Like, they realize they're not the target. And I've always wondered, like, what's going through their little nervous system? Is it like we're okay, or is it they just decided it's not a threat anymore, maybe? But I don't know.
They just don't realize what's going on.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, maybe they don't.
I mean, I think emotions. I think emotions are too complex for a guppy to have. I've said it 100 times now.
I know.
My feeling.
No.
Do other fish maybe have emotions? I really don't think so. I think it's all instinct, and I think maybe the bigger the fish or the more advanced the fish is.
Sure.
I don't know. I just think their range of what they can do is more than a guppy, but I still don't think it's an actual emotion. Emotions are very complex.
They are. And to me, I have to draw the line that, so to me that means, like, I'm going to take some words out of your mouth here, and I hope I don't mess them up. You can tell me if I do. But basically, like, the more intelligent or more complex of thought that a creature can have, the more apt it is to have the ability to have a complex emotion as well, kind of thing. Like, if it's not a fish that can do lots of thinking, critical thinking or abstract thinking at all, it has a teeny tiny little brain, there's not even the like amount of connections in that brain to do a complex permutation of something, then it's less likely to have feelings. But what I wonder is, like, does that mean that super smart people have more intense emotions than less smart people? I mean, I don't want to get into some like crazy eugenics debate or anything.
Well,
but,
hold on.
Yeah.
No, I think if you're a person that uses your brain as much as you can,
yeah,
you focus. Like, I know really, really smart doctors. They're blundering idiots in real life, and they're kind of a-holes.
Totally, yeah.
All they do is focus on fixing people, right? That's all they focus on.
Sure.
Does that make them smarter than me, or not as emotional as me? No, they're just different. But those are humans.
Yeah.
Guppy brain.
Sure.
Can't do it.
Well, I think we can agree. Personally, me anyways, I'm not speaking for anyone in chat, but I think we can agree. I'm not too worried about what guppies feel complex emotionally wise. I don't think it's really, in my mind, there's a continuum of how much anything feels or thinks. And I think that like the core of pain, hunger, wanting to reproduce, kind of your like main life things that all life does, they probably have a reward system in their brain that says that feels good, that feels bad, some sort of dopamine or whatever. And as long as they have that, to me, that indicates something. But to me, it's the more complex ways that they interact with the world, the more apt it is to have an emotion. But to me, I don't even know. I mean, you could say the same thing about a dog to me, but it's just farther down the continuum with a fish, usually, in my mind. Like a dog a dog may miss its owner, but I think that also we project a lot of things, like it's thinking about this and that, whereas it may be a really straightforward, just owner gives me food, owner loves me, I like owner, I get dopamine when owner's around, because of evolution, being a domestic dog for 10,000 years. And so when I see owner, I get this good rush of happy making chemicals. And so I think maybe the distinction should be made that like fear, happiness, or feeling good, hungry, those aren't really, in my mind, like emotions that, like you're saying, because I guess they kind of just come. You can't control those. You don't have to think about them. They happen regardless of what you think, kind of. You know what I mean? Like, you look at a pretty lady if you're a guy, and there's some certain responses in certain cases you can't help. Blood flow to let's just say the lips. That's one example. That's why we wear makeup. Women and men back in the day, you blush when you're around somebody who gives you feels. And early society thought they could dress that up and always look attentive and alert and attractive by having red lips. The Egyptians thought that was the cool thing to do, and we still do it, I guess. We thought they were smart, those Egyptians. But yeah, so I think this is a topic that I'll probably want to research a little more on my own, and I'll probably do kind of like my retrospective thought on it. But while you're here, I'd like to talk about a couple other random things if you're cool with that. And so I mean, I was curious what kind of and I'll say this before, like the level of complexity in fish is constantly amazing me, but I still don't know where I stand on. I mean, there's sociopaths, humans, that don't feel for other humans, but they can be extremely intelligent. And do they have an emotion? I think in our colloquial definition, no. We would say no, they don't have empathy or like depression for anything but themselves, kind of. They can't project. And what I'm interested in is where the emotions seemingly may cross over complexity wise, thinking emotion, like tool use. Like now they found that wrasses can pick up rocks and open shells, and for a long time that was the line, for 150 years in psychology and biology, where they said, well, only humans use tools, that's why humans are special. And I think it's obviously going to be, the answers are going to be way more nuanced than they use tools. They can tell if it's them in a mirror. They can count. They this or that, whatever the line, it gets changed a lot. And so I think, I just wanted to bring on a different opinion than my own, because I know it's a prevalent one. And what I wanted to highlight too is, one, that we can civilly talk and get along, but two, that we both keep our fish and care about their well-being.
Yeah.
And don't want them to be miserable, whatever that means. We want them to have a good existence. We want them to produce the maximum amount of fish as possible by being in their optimal evolutionary parameters, I guess,
So, some people don't like the fact that for me, it's a business.
Sure.
Yeah, and I have.
A lot of people are fake about that, and it drives me insane.
Of
yeah.
Course. People, let me do a fish room tour after they spent 10 hours cleaning. I don't either.
People are like, oh, you got trash on your floor. I'm like, yeah, I'm not perfect. I'm a slob.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a business. So obviously I want the fish to be happy so they don't die. So yeah, I try to keep them in the best water parameters possible. And sometimes stuff happens and I got to figure it out. I got to make them better, and I got to make sure they don't die. Because if they die, I lose money, because it's a business, and I want to make money.
Sure.
So it's not that, in my case, I'm keeping, one time I had like 300 guppies in a 20-gallon tank, and people are like, losing their mind. But yeah, I change water every day automatically while I sleep, and the water parameters were perfect. So
yeah,
perfect. Another thing I can't stand on Facebook.
Sure.
So, again, my level of comfort in keeping fish can be different than others, and my methods can be different. It doesn't make it wrong. So,
right. Well, and you have been doing this for years, so that trick, or all the tricks basically, of if you put 200 or 300 guppies in a 20 long, you can do it. They'll survive. I've done it in a pinch. I've put like 200 fish in a 20 long. But you better be changing that water a lot, and it's good to have some plants in there, and there's.
There's definitely tricks, if you will, but that just comes with experience. But the point is, I can do something in my fish room, and if I'm okay with it, then it's okay. And it's a business. I keep fish to sell fish. I don't want them to die because then I lose money. So, even though it's a business, I still care about the fish, but I don't care enough for me not to sell them. I don't get a
Sure, yeah.
If someone were to offer me good money for this flower horn, I would definitely sell it. I don't know if I would sell this one, but this one.
Yeah. I'm the same way with most of my fish. There's a few exceptions, and I'll admit though. So the other part of this kind of argument, tangentially, I suppose, is, and by the way, Mary Page, thank you so much for the super sticker. You rock. You're always here, and you're such a supporter of so many fish channels. I just appreciate it. You're a keystone of the fish tube community, and always positive. But so the other thing I was gonna say was that what was it that I was gonna say about that thought just went away, probably like a guppy's. People will say like, a goldfish, look, they can remember a year, not 3 seconds. Like everyone said that was only 3 seconds. And to me, that's not really a gotcha or anything, but I just think we should learn what we can about creatures, and usually replicating their environments is a good thing, because that's how they're going to flourish evolutionarily, generally, unless you know some trick that has been proven to keep them healthy otherwise, Well,
and it also matters, like if you buy a wild-caught discus compared to one bred in Asia,
oh, sure.
They're completely different fish. Yes,
yeah.
Discus, but they're completely different fish. So, like you were saying with rams, I bred rams before. I have hard water. It can be done. Is it ideal? No, but it can be done. And so
I have a hard time with soft water.
And so just because ram in its natural environment is very soft, very clean water, doesn't mean the ram you get that was bred in Florida's concrete water is the same.
Yeah.
So like you said in the beginning, you have to know where your fish come from.
Well, and not to mention, like, what's a German blue ram in the wild? Hate to break it to you, there isn't one. They're a domestically made up fish, so it's a Bolivian. Yeah, just like, exactly. Guppies have been so mixed up for 150 plus years that, yeah, who knows what an Endler or a guppy or whatever. There are very few that you can go back and prove. And, you know, I was actually talking to this guy, David Resnick, who is kind of the premier researcher on guppies at UCLA. And he was saying that of the guppies, when they go out in the middle of the Amazon, most of them have DNA from strains that they recognize as domestic. And that the like isolated, untouched, true wild guppy or Endler is kind of a myth at this point. They said that 2003 or 4 was kind of the last time that they were seeing genetics that the way they can tell is if in the genetic code of the mother's DNA or the mitochondrial DNA, they'll see like that a recessive gene was selected for 50 generations in a row by mutations. And it's just like in the wild, that doesn't happen if it's not
natural.
No, yeah, exactly. And so, you know, what's kind of cool is with bettas, they've actually found that they've been doing that for 1,000 years. They've been selecting for them. And another thing that, you know, just a tidbit, and I know, yes, I haven't experienced it, but they said that red was the color that they are most commonly, the red-blue combo that you kind of see. And that's kind of what you get if you have like mutt bettas, usually if you buy cheap ones. But apparently there's something about the red pigment that was emblematic of meaner guppies. And it wasn't that they bred them to be red, or I mean of not guppies, sorry, bettas. And the fact
I'm old and I have COVID, so don't be doing that. I'm like, what?
So like they selected for them to fight for 500 years, not to be red or whatever. They wanted them to fight. They used them to like settle village disputes and stuff as like a boxing game or, you know, kind of thing like that. And so that just happened to mean that they became more and more red as that was selected for, which I thought was interesting. But, you know, bettas in domestic bettas are far meaner than wild bettas because nobody was paying attention to their attitude. And for a long time, red was such a dominant gene because they were bred to be mean fish. And only now are we getting bettas that have been cut in with lines like Machiensis and, you know, other bettas like alien bettas that are 3 or 4 wild species kind of put together into one that have a different temperament altogether. But we don't need to go into all that. What I was going to ask you next was, do you remember the first guppy species or line that you kept? Yep. I mean, what was it? Like,
it was Tequila Sunrise from PetSmart.
Well, it's still a big seller. I mean, it's a good one. The first ones I had, I think, were like snakeskin blue or something. But I remember when I started breeding fish for profit as a teenager, like 12 or 13, I got into it. And then by my middle teenage years, it'll show how young I am to some people who are like, oh, you little kid, and to other people how old I am if they're young. But eBay was brand new, and I was selling snakeskin metallic delta tail guppies as a mid, like 15, 16-year-old on eBay when that was new. And that was like the big strain that I was into, like trying to get better as a teenager. So that was like one I really worked with. And then when I discovered like girls and drinking and social life, fish keeping wasn't cool. And so I literally put my 3 tanks in the bedroom closet and like had the clothes in front of them, but still like did it all. But when my friends came over, like only a few like close friends knew that I had my fish tanks until college again. But I think about it now and I'm like, well, that was stupid. but I encourage any kids watching. Yeah, exactly. I encourage any kids that are watching, just be yourself. Like, people will find it interesting if you're passionate about it. And that's what I was going to say earlier was, regardless of whether you think the betta or a guppy or a pleco are the most intelligent, they're smarter than humans. You know, the bottom line is let's treat these animals with a certain amount of dignity and respect. And we want what's best for them to be alive and not miserable. And let's help each other towards that goal. And in the process, let's not make other humans who we agree have feelings miserable. So arguing on YouTube, name calling, all that kind of stuff, or arguing on Facebook and stuff. The ironic part is that we're arguing over something that may or may not have feelings. Maybe half people say it doesn't have feelings or whatever the percentage is. But for sure, the people on the other ends of these comments have feelings. And we're agitating each other. And so, like, let's be kind to each other, you know? I just think it's ironic that, like, human feelings are getting hurt over fish feelings, which may or may not exist, depending on your opinion anyways. But I think whether you come at it from sheer for-profit and, like, I'm just trying to maximize profit, you still need to take good care of your fish. Like, you'll have a bad product if your fish are super inbred because you're shortcutting that, you know, over and over, or whatever it may be. Like, these things that are wellness in most people's mind for their fish, they're definitely also just evolutionary things that need to be accounted for. And money, we need to vote with our dollar, and we need to encourage people. Buy from local breeders, buy from independent breeders that have the time to do that, that don't just throw 500,000 guppies in a pond and just, like, let it sit every season there or whatnot. I think that it merits paying more to people like Michael or me even. Like, I don't really breed a ton for profit, more just locally to friends and stuff. But there was a time when I was really into, like, shrimp and other stuff for profit. But knowing where your fish come from, I don't think it matters a ton whether the people care if the fish have feelings, but you do want to know how they care for their fish. And Michael is completely transparent with that. And to me, like, that's the bottom line, is, like, if you can be transparent with your operation, then, you know, you're doing something that doesn't need to be hidden, or like, you don't have any facade over anything. It's not fake. And I think a lot of people do just buy stuff from trans shippers from Asia and flip it instantly. And, you know, there's some people who do that the right way, so to speak, and then start breeding it in country or whatever. And there's other people who don't even treat them for, you know, illness, throw away half the dead ones, and they're like, well, I still made profit. And that's why you should buy from people that breed at home. So,
like, I'll do an unboxing video, and then it'll be a week before they're on my website, and then a week before I ship, because I try to keep them at least 2 weeks.
Sure.
To make sure they're okay, and to help them get acclimatized, I made up the word, to our water, because our water is different than it is overseas.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, totally. And I mean, pathogens too. I just took tank water and put it under the microscope on my channel a little while ago, a clear drop of water. And we saw 7 clearly different organisms. And you could look at that one eyedropper of water and you swear there's nothing in it, you know? And that's just one random drop. Imagine what the heck's in all of our... I know. Imagine what's in, like, some swampy fish farm that has 500 species of fish in ponds all next to each other and vats that get filled. And
like, that's why I treat for stuff.
Yeah.
Even if I don't see it, I treat all my imports for things, because I know in my experience they're going to have something. And
Sure.
I don't want to sell a fish that's sick. It happens, unfortunately. They look perfectly fine, and then they arrive in distress and whatever. But honestly, and you know, you can see it in my channel how I treat my fish and what I do. I tell people what my methods are. Why? Because I am transparent. I don't hide anything.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think it's admirable. I really like that. And it's also why I've watched your channel. I watched your channel, like, when I was making my channel. Your channel was newer and I probably hadn't found it yet, but, like, within just after making my channel that year, as I kind of, like, looked at the environment, mine started about a year or two after yours probably. But I found you, and I remember thinking, like, and I've already told you this, like, to your face online, but, oh, that guy's a blunt, like, straight up East Coast kind of, like, this is my opinion, deal with it kind of guy. And that may not always be how I approach things, but I respect that. I know what I'm dealing with. I know where you stand. And because of that, like, I think a lot of people think that there's these warm and fuzzy characters in the YouTube realm or in their local fish shop. And at the end of the day, you have to be a business person to make a business work. And so these channels that are businesses, like, people shouldn't judge them on one hand too harshly for being a business, but you should vote with your dollar on the businesses that are transparent enough or they're doing the practices that you believe are important. So if there's somebody who takes each betta and sings it a song every night and, like, writes its name on the bowl and takes it for walks every day, and they can sell it for $1,000 a betta and there's someone willing to buy it, great. Maybe there needs to be a market for that. Start doing that if you're worried about your fish having feelings and you think that the treatment needs to change because of that, then start doing it and selling them and see how it goes. I mean, let's see if people can put their money where their mouth is on the importance of whether fish think or not. And my thought is that in the end, I'll pay double for a fish to know that it was quarantined well and to know that it had a good life, good genetics and all that stuff, sometimes even triple. But I'm not going to pay 10 times the amount. I'm just not going to get that fish, That's the bottom line probably. So, yeah. But okay, so we talked about also now I think we're probably done with that. Everybody thought, like, I had people all day being like, oh, are you gonna lay into each other, or like, is this gonna be a grudge match? I'm like, no, you're not gonna see that. Like, don't tune in for that if that was your hopes. But I'm curious, what lines are you keeping now? Because if people want to buy something, there's a link listed below, and I'm all for encouraging, raising up. I think the tide rises with all of us. So, I mean, I think it's good to promote any fellow fish keeper that's doing things as long as they're doing them respectably. So what do you got in store right now? What are you working on?
So many. Red dragons, purple mosaics. I mean, really. Go to the website, michaelsfishroom.com. Check it out. I also have plecos, all kinds of bristle nose plecos, long fin, short fin, whatever.
Sure.
I'm out of Corey's. I was supposed to actually pick up Corey's this week, but COVID, can't do it. So
yeah.
A couple more weeks out. But half of my guppies are imports and half of them are tank bred or bred in the USA. I buy from local breeders. A lot of people have contacted me and said, hey, I have 30 pairs of this. Will you buy them? Yeah, I will buy them for wholesale.
Yeah. I mean,
I sell them and I make money and they make money and everyone's happy and the fish are happy because that's the most important.
And to me, in transparency, I mean, things vary depending on the fish, but generally, the kind of general rule of thumb is 3 to 4 times markup at each level, if not way more with wholesale and import. But I mean, because you lose some, things happen. Right now, things really happen with flights getting canceled and stuff sitting on loading docks for who knows.
Have like
insane. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason Scarlet Batis have gone up to $10 a fish when they used to be $3, at all the local stores, at least out here in Seattle. Seattle's an expensive as hell place anyways, though. But, there's a reason why, to me, though, it's not good to charge $12 if they should be $9. You know what I mean? And you got to get your money in somewhere, I guess, as a business. You got to decide which things have the best profit margin, and some are better than others and all that. And I understand that. But I have noticed some places kind of jacking up prices, and I don't necessarily think it correlates with because their costs went up on that thing, and it bugs me a little sometimes. But I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that with other businesses?
If you can sell a $10 fish for $12, why not? That's business.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's capitalism. Yeah, for sure. It's capitalism.
So let's say a fish store has, just say, 30 different species of fish, and they buy from 3 different wholesalers, right?
Mm-hmm.
One wholesaler is doing great, and all their fish are coming in on time, and all of them are healthy, but the 2 others are having problems. And so they're losing more fish. The business says if I'm going to survive, I need to make X amount a week. That means that $10 fish has to now be $12.
Yeah.
Or, you know, the bottle of fish food has to go up $1.
Sure.
That's just business 101.
Oh, well, definitely. Yeah, no, I definitely agree about that. I'm just talking about, like, I think that just like we saw it with Obamacare, when that came in, a lot of insurance plans changed rates for reasons they had to, but others just added 10% because they felt like it, you know? So I'm just saying, shop with people like Michael that you know what their prices were, and he tells you what's going on and what he has to do to raise them. It costs money to raise fish, and it costs a lot to, you know, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about, Craig. Somebody says, everyone says prices are up and they blame COVID. And it's true that there are some major issues with that, but there are other things that lately I look at and I'm like, I can't think of a conceivable way that is impacted by COVID other than they're just worried about profits in the future or something, you know, like.
Just know that in every country in the world, except for maybe Australia and New Zealand, because they really handled COVID well.
Australia now has like 1 million cases. They totally like lost control this week.
Really?
It's insane. Yeah.
I remember when they had like 5.
I know. It's crazy.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Most countries are having issues with a labor shortage due to COVID. My son's school, we had to go remote for 2 weeks after the holidays because like 30% of the staff called out.
Yeah.
Because of COVID. And that's a real thing. You know how I know? Do you know?
Because you have COVID. Yeah.
And I wear a mask all the time, and I'm vaccinated and boosted and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing is, do people raise prices just to raise prices? I'm sure. But in this right now, in the world we're living in, COVID has affected almost every industry.
Mm-hmm. I agree. No, and that's good to, I mean, it's good to temper what I just said in my frustration with some logical business sense. So I know I appreciate that.
That's the thing. We can talk. Clearly, we are on different sides of the fence.
Yeah.
We can talk and explain to each other our feelings without being jacked.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I really enjoy hearing other people's opinions and trying to be like, should I change my thought on that a little bit? Like, that's how you get better at being a person. You don't have to stand your ground in every battle. You know what I mean? It's not a battle. It's life. It's just, you know, so.
It's just, there's 2 ways. There's more than one way to do things and more than one opinion. Yeah. And if someone disagrees with you, that doesn't mean you're wrong or they're wrong. It just means they have a different opinion.
Right. And the bottom line is keep your fish like you want to keep your fish. You know, like if it bugs you how certain fish are being kept, it bugs me how Petco brings in bettas and puts them in like shot glasses and half of them are dead when I walk by. And I do rescue them from time to time because it makes me feel better as a human. I don't necessarily think that impacts anything.
And all the bettas in those little shot glasses looked fantastic.
Yeah.
Did it bug you as much that they were in little cups?
No. Yeah. And, you know, I will say that bettas specifically, they live in flooded forests and rice paddies and spots where sometimes they are in a 2-inch thing of water, 2-inch deep, and it's maybe 3 feet across, and there's like 8 bettas and, you know, a gourami and a snakehead or something eating half of the other stuff. You know, like they get stuck in these weird little areas. Right. And in the reason like Project Piapa figured out that cardinal tetras are sustainable is because they thought, oh, they're being overfished for sure. Millions are fished out every year. They have to be depleting the source. Well, it turns out that the fish lay the eggs right before the wet season. As the wet season's starting, the eggs hatch, the little teeny fry hide and scatter, and as they're juveniles, they go all over the place. The water rises, and they get trapped in areas that dry out. That's how the forest gets its, nitrates and phosphates and all the plants in the forest. They're fertilized by that. Same with salmon in the Pacific Northwest where I live. Bears and eagles drop them in the forest. Flooding causes them to end up in a field, and then that field, for thousands of years of flooding, ends up being a really fertile field full of fish guts. But I mean, there's they catch those cardinal tetras when they're trapped in the ponds, not just because, you know, they're going to die and they're worried, like they don't care. It's because it's easiest. It's when they're in the densest collection. And there's many times. And what bugs me is people go look at what wild fish live like. Do they have nice fins? Rarely. Are they full of bugs that may kill them in a year or less? Usually. So, I mean, anything that we're giving them.
No.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, are they getting tormented by being chased by sharks and things? So you have to think of, I don't know, I keep going back to sharks today. I have a shark fixation. All those sharks hurting those poor guppies. I can't get over it. You know, those freshwater sharks, those land sharks. Bull sharks, I guess. Must be little teeny bull sharks that I'm thinking of. But yeah, you know, and most will die in those puddles because that's what the ecosystem has evolved to tolerate. And that's why they have 5,000 babies in the course of that little fish's life, you know? And that's why a pleco is more expensive, where it may only have 5 or 6 of like a leopard frog pleco. There's different styles to raising things, different evolutionary patterns. And I think it's important to inform yourself, not just where your fish come from that you're buying them from, but also, is that a fish that we should have in captivity because it's threatened or the practices are maybe bad? And that's all up to you. You know, everybody's tolerance for what is not a good situation is going to be different. You know, there's like armed warlords in regions that sell fish to the fish trade. You know, there's also rebels that maybe you support overthrowing dictators in other regions that sell fish. I mean, there's all sorts of different things going on of any economic trade if you look into it far enough. And I think the bottom line is just educate yourself and then keep your fish accordingly to what you can sleep with at night, you know? And if there's somebody that has a profit, you know, system that works, like I was saying with the artisan betta that get massaged, like Kobe betta, we'll call it Kobe betta, like Kobe beef. They get massages and they drink beer all day, and you know, acorns or whatever it is they do to those cows to make them so tasty. But I mean, if there's a market for it, great. I hope someone does it. Why don't you do it if you're worried about it? I mean, to those of you watching, if you are worried about it, and everyone else, like, let's just reasonably try to find a happy medium of, you know, if you think your fish are sentient and care about X, Y, or Z, try to accommodate them as best you can. I mean, a lot of these fish, though, do come from rivers that are miles long. How are you ever going to replicate that in an aquarium? I mean, if you're going to be replicating the wild, you might as well be throwing in a bunch of parasites and an Oscar and, you know, like if you wanted to make your guppy tank realistic, like a wild guppy, yeah, throw an Oscar in, throw some ick or parasites in, some worms.
I think that's just another part of humans projecting themselves onto their fish. I want to keep them in nature, in their exact environment, in a glass box in my house. Like, yeah.
Well, it can't be, and I get that, but to me, it's like building a model, kind of. It's got more working pieces and more intricacies than like putting together a model car like I used to as a teenager. You know, balancing an ecosystem is a little more complicated, and so that's why I have fun tinkering with it, but. Okay, so I'm curious, just to end this. I know you got COVID, so I don't want to like keep you forever. And I'm really appreciative that you've come and like chatted with me today, and that we've gotten to like get to know each other a little bit better. Because I know we've only messaged each other a few times, and that's it really. So I really appreciate it. Cool. But do you have a dream? Do you have a dream fish or like a dream setup of any sort?
Well. Yes, if executive management would allow, I would have a ginormous discus tank with just discus, bare bottom, and lots of discus. That's what I would have, like a 300-gallon, really long tank.
Yeah.
That would be a dream for me. But to be honest, that's definitely the dream. But my angelfish tank upstairs is in between the kitchen and family room, and you can see through it, and it's got some really nice plants in it now, and it looks pretty okay.
Yeah.
I kind of really like the planted look, and I suck at plants. Like, I'm terrible.
I love plants, so
work on my plant game.
I'm a fan of that too. But I mean, honestly, that's another thing that I see online all the time. We could do a whole like 20-hour series of things that annoy us in Facebook groups. But one is when people are like, your discus aren't living natural, you need to add plants. It's like, well, where discus live, there's not a goddamn plant for miles. Like, they live in sandy rivers that are flooded out, and there's logs, but other than maybe some grassy stuff on the banks, there are no plants in that part of the river, you know, most of the time. Or the only plants are like the treetops of the jungle being flooded. So that's another, you know, like when people think of biotope tanks, a lot of biotopes are pretty darn ugly and boring. Our aquariums are the entire world shoved into a glass box, like the cool parts of the world, you know? And to me, that is what makes a pretty neat aquarium. So, whatever.
I mean, if you keep fish, you should keep fish for you, right? So
yeah,
it's that simple. I keep fish for me, you keep fish for you. Somebody else keeps fish for them, and that's okay. Nothing wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. So do you have any big breeding projects or like, you know, anything that you're working on now? I mean, are you making any lines yourself or like any interest in any of that kind of stuff?
No, I mean, I've done things like that in the past, but right now I'm hoping the weather gets warmer and
yeah,
I can start. I literally have like a ton. I don't want to say the amount. A ton of orders just waiting, and everybody's been really patient and understanding. Most people would rather me not ship when it's cold anyway, so that's cool. I mean, I'm breeding lots of different plecos and different lines of guppies, but you know. It's all on my channel. I document pretty much everything I do on the channel.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so defer to the channel. Like, it's like your lawyer, basically.
Michael's Fish Room is my YouTube channel, and my website is michaelsfishroom.com.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I always like to give my guest of the day, of the week, of the year. You're kind of my guest of the year because it's 2022, and really, I mean, yeah. So, so far, I mean, you might get replaced at some point, but
I mean, that's fine.
In the meantime, do you have any? I like to leave it with last words. So let me speak to the audience real quick. And you guys, I wasn't engaging with a lot of comments because I didn't want it to derail what we have going on between the two of us. It's hard enough to talk. The guy's got COVID and he's sharing his time with me and you guys. So it's hard to like read the chat and try to engage with all that. We'll have another live stream on my channel where we can all talk and have our opinions, and you can try to convince me of one thing or another or each other of whatever. That's fine. But thank you guys for coming out. Thank you for all of you who were respectful and calm and whatever, just being awesome like you usually are. There's always a few people who are a bit uppity, but for the most part, really awesome people, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you want to support the channel, you can always become a member, or you can check out the links below Michael's links in the description that are always in there in all my videos, or shop at Aquatic Arts. That's another place, speaking of fish sources, that I think do a pretty good job of the business. I've got a discount code for 15% off. You can check them out. But I'm done with my my soapbox here for the day, and I will continue to bring people news of anything that happens when we learn that fish have figured out how to decode the what was it, the Nicolas Cage movie with National Treasure, you know, where he, yeah, if fish can ever, like, you know, undo riddles like that, I'll definitely update you guys.
I'll be happy to hear that.
Yeah, if they can do calculus, I'll let you know. I don't think Nicolas Cage could do calculus. But in any case, thank you, moderators, and everybody who came for the night. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Michael. You have the last word, whatever you want to say. The stage is yours, but I encourage people to check out Michael's links below and his channel.
Thank you. I'm just gonna say it and hate me, don't hate me. Pineapple belongs on pizza. That's it.
All right. Thanks again, mods and everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.